In West Texas, a poor single mother inherits a peeling, wind-beaten farm that the powerful call worthless, until a quiet door creaks open on buried truths and costly consequences. If stories of dignity rising from dust speak to you, stay with us. Subscribe, like the video, and tell us where you're watching from. The ceiling fan in the Taylor County Probate Office ticked like a lazy metronome, pushing warm air that smelled faintly of copier ink and old leather. Elena Morales stood in a thrift store blouse, palms damp, watching dust float through window light. Outside, tires hissed on South First Street. Inside, a brass clock clicked past 4. Her 10-year-old daughter, Sophia, swung her scuffed sneaker, clutching a sun-faded backpack with a broken zipper pull, a little silver star. Across the table, Grant Malloy leaned back as if the chair belonged to him, boots polished to a mirror, cufflinks in the shape of longhorns. He owned storage units, car lots, and, if you listen to him, the future. "An old farm in Buffalo Gap?" he drawled, smiling without warmth. "Miss Morales, it's worth more as a memory than as land. I'll take the headache off your hands before taxes swallow you." He slid a thin check across the wood like a paper blade. Elena smelled his cologne, sharp citrus over something cold. Her fingers grazed the brittle envelope from the attorney, the deed from a great uncle she barely knew. A farmhouse with peeling white paint, a leaning windmill and soil put to sleep by drought. The clerk stapled, coughed, fired, and avoided her eyes. "Mama, can we see it?" Sophia whispered, soft as the rustle of papers. Elena lifted the check, felt its weightlessness. In Malloy's laughter, she heard other rooms, other years. Managers who paid her late for night shift cleaning, patrons who left greasy plates and uglier words. "This offer seems low, Mr. Malloy. The property is 30 acres. 30 acres of dust and debt, Ms. Morales." He adjusted his cufflink. "The place hasn't seen rain in 3 years. The well's probably dry as bone." Elena's life had been a string pulled through rough cloth, snagging, breaking, knotted again. She grew up off Treadaway Boulevard in Abilene, a duplex with thin walls that let in arguments, praise music, and summer crickets. The smell of frying oil followed her from the diner, where she took double shifts, hair pinned back, wrists aching from lifting dish racks. When Sophia was born, the hospital room buzzed with disinfectant and fluorescent hum. The father left between the beeping of machines and the settling of dawn. On the top shelf of their tiny kitchen sat a cracked snow globe from a yard sale, a farmhouse inside, its roof rubbed silver by time. "Shake it," and the flakes clung to the glass, reluctant to fall. "One day," Elena would say, tapping the base. "Just one day." It became their ritual before bedtime, before spelling tests, before rent was due. Sophia tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, please, can we go see it?" Malloy checked his watch, the face catching light. "I have another appointment. Think about it, but not too long. Tax auction comes up in 30 days. Elena set the check down, feeling the room thicken with a silence heavy enough to bruise. Indignation rose in her like heat from asphalt. "I'd like to see the property first, mister." Malloy. "It belonged to my family. Suit yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you." He slid a business card next to the check. "Call me when reality sets in." 2 days later, Elena and Sophia stood in front of the farmhouse, the afternoon sun beating down on their shoulders. The white paint curled away from the wood like old skin, and the porch steps sagged in the middle. A windmill creaked in the distance, its metal vanes catching the light. "It looks like our snow globe," Sophia said, her voice full of wonder. Elena felt her throat tighten. "It does, doesn't it?" The door key turned stiffly in the lock. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and memories. Sunlight streamed through dirty windows, illuminating floating moats. The floorboards groaned under their feet. "It smells old," Sophia said, wrinkling her nose. "It smells like history," Elena corrected, running her fingers along a wooden countertop, worn smooth by years of use. They spent the afternoon exploring, opening creaky cabinets, peering into empty rooms, discovering a rusted swing set behind the house. Sophia found a collection of bird feathers on a windowsill and carefully tucked them into her backpack. That evening, as they prepared to leave, Elena stood on the porch, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The land stretched before her, golden in the fading light. Despite the drought, despite Malloy's warnings, something stirred inside her, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. Hope. What do you think, Sophia? Should we let Mr. Malloy buy it? Sophia looked up, her eyes serious. No, Mama. It's ours. It feels like ours. Back at their trailer that night, Elena spread the deed papers on their small kitchen table. The property tax statement made her stomach clench, more than she could afford on her diner wages. Malloy's check sat beside it, a temptation wrapped in practicality. The next morning brought a notice taped to their trailer door. Eviction in urgent red, the ink bleeding where dew had licked it. Park management wanted them out for late fees. The clerk at the county office had hinted at delinquent taxes on the farm. Elena called the number on Malloy's card, her fingers trembling slightly. Mr. Malloy. It's Elena Morales, about the farm. Had a feeling I'd be hearing from you, Ms. Morales. Ready to be sensible? Elena closed her eyes, picturing the farmhouse, the windmill, Sophia collecting feathers. She thought of her snow globe, of years spent saying one day. Actually, she said, her voice steadying, I've decided to keep it. We're moving in next week. Silence stretched across the line, then Malloy's, chuckle cold as winter rain. Well now, that's a decision you might come to regret. That place will eat whatever savings you have. Maybe, but it's ours to try. After hanging up, Elena stared at the eviction notice, then at the farm deed. She'd need to find more work, maybe clean houses on weekends. The road ahead looked impossible, steep and winding and lined with thorns. But for the first time in years, it was a road of her choosing. The first night at the farmhouse, the air tasted of dry cedar and old dust. Crickets rasped under the porch, and the corrugated roof pinged as it released the day's heat. Elena swept mouse droppings from the kitchen corners, the bristles scratching over linoleum that curled like bark. The sink coughed rust. The fridge exhaled a tired rattle. A moth threw itself against the exposed bulb with soft, tragic thuds. Sophia lay curled on a sleeping bag in what would become her bedroom, her breathing soft and even. Elena sat at the kitchen table, a single lamp casting yellow light across scattered papers. Bills, notices, the deed with its formal language she struggled to understand. The trailer park manager had given them 2 weeks to clear out. The county tax office wanted payment on the farm. Her diner paycheck wouldn't cover both. She rubbed her eyes, feeling grit beneath her lids. Through the window, the windmill's silhouette turned lazily against stars so bright they seemed to hum. This land, this burden, was her heritage, but heritage didn't pay bills or feed children. A truck rumbled past on the distant road, its headlights briefly illuminating the yard before darkness swallowed it again. Elena thought of Malloy's check, still in her purse. One phone call would solve everything and leave them with nothing. "Ka," she whispered to the empty kitchen. "If there's anything I've missed, show me." Morning came with birdsong and golden light that revealed more flaws, a stain spreading on the ceiling. Window frames rotted at the corners, a mouse hole behind the stove. Elena made breakfast on a camping burner. Instant oatmeal that stuck to the pot, and instant coffee that tasted of chemicals and hope. Sophia appeared in the doorway, hair tousled, eyes bright with adventure. "Can I explore today, Mama?" Elena nodded, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. "Just be careful. This place is old." While Sophia investigated the barn and counted fence posts, Elena scrubbed the bathroom, the smell of bleach burning her nostrils. Pastor Ruth had promised to bring cleaning supplies after church. Mr. Alvarez said he'd look at the well pump on his day off. Small kindnesses, breadcrumbs on a path that seemed to lead nowhere. By afternoon, the heat had settled like a wool blanket. Elena paused her work, drinking lukewarm water from a plastic bottle, watching sweat drip onto the floorboards. That's when she heard it. Sophia's voice, high with excitement. Mama! Mama, come quick! Elena found her daughter in the living room, standing on a floorboard near the fireplace. Sophia jumped, and the board gave a hollow creak, different from the others, sharper and more resonant. Listen, Sophia said, jumping again. The sound traveled under the floor like a small secret running. Elena knelt, fingertips tracing splinters, the smell of old pine rising. She pressed on one end of the board, and the other lifted slightly. Get me a knife from the kitchen, she said. They worked together, inserting the butter knife into the crack, prying gently. The board resisted, then surrendered with a groan. Beneath it gaped a dark cavity, cool air rising like a sigh. Sophia reached in without hesitation, her small hand disappearing to the wrist. There's something here. She withdrew a biscuit tin, sky blue under grime, the paint crazed like dry riverbeds. Elena's hands trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside lay an envelope thick with paper, edges browned, a faint perfume of cedar and old ink. On top was a faded photograph. Her great-uncle Royce beside a young woman Elena had seen only in family whispers, both in Sunday clothes in front of the same windmill, the sky a hard blue. Beneath were documents with seals and signatures, the paper soft as cloth. What is it, Mama? Sophia peered over her shoulder. Elena spread the papers on the floor where light fell through the window. A letterhead read, Mesquite Basin Energy, dated years ago. Words leaped from the page. Mineral deed, Bennett Ranch, royalties in escrow, due to title irregularity. I think... Elena swallowed, trying to understand. I think it's about oil or gas under the farm. Sophia traced her finger over another paper. Look, Mama. My name is here. Elena squinted at the document. Sophia Morales, minor, typed as beneficiary contingent upon Elena's guardianship, per a notarized addendum signed by Royce. A ledger listed deposits and interest, numbers marching like soldiers. $120 million. The zeros made her dizzy. That can't be right, she whispered. They spent the evening poring over the documents, spreading them across the kitchen table as night fell. There were maps showing seams of land under their feet, a honeycomb of wells branching below like a secret root system. Letters from attorneys, notices from the energy company, all addressed to Royce Bennett, all returned unopened. When Sophia finally fell asleep, curled around the tin box as if it might vanish, Elena sat on the porch steps, the night air cool against her skin. The windmill creaked, stars wheeled overhead, and for the first time in years, she felt something like peace. Not because of the money, though God knew they needed it, but because the universe had answered when she asked. A car appeared on the horizon, headlights cutting through darkness. Elena tensed as it slowed, then turned into their driveway. The familiar shape of Malloy's luxury SUV made her stomach clench. He stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, cologne preceding him like a warning. Evening, Ms. Morales. Just checking how you're settling in. Elena stood, arms crossed. We're fine, Mr. Malloy. It's late for a social call. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just being neighborly. Had a chance to reconsider my offer? No, Elena said, the word clean and simple on her tongue. We're staying. Malloy's gaze swept the sagging porch, the peeling paint. Tax auctions in 3 weeks. Place like this, falling apart? County might not even get their money back. Then I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Look, I understand pride, but pride doesn't keep a roof over your daughter's head. Elena thought of the documents inside, of Sophia's name on paper that promised security. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Malloy. But we'll manage. After he left, taillights receding like angry eyes, Elena called the number she'd found in the tin. It rang 4 times before a sleepy voice answered. Lila Chen, attorney at law. Miss? Chen. My name is Elena Morales. I found your card and some documents belonging to my great-uncle, Royce Bennett. Silence, then the sound of movement. The Bennett estate? We've been trying to locate heirs for years. How did you find me? Elena explained about the farmhouse, the floorboard, the tin of documents. There's something about mineral rights, royalties and escrow. I don't understand it all. Miss Morales, Lila's voice sharpened with focus. Those documents could be extremely valuable. Don't share them with anyone. Don't sign anything. I can meet you tomorrow morning. After hanging up, Elena returned to the porch. The night had deepened, stars burning holes in velvet darkness. The windmill turned, steady and sure, as if it had been waiting all along. Inside, Sophia slept peacefully, one hand still resting on the tin box. Elena brushed hair from her daughter's forehead, feeling a surge of fierce protection. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Dawn broke with new promise. Elena made oatmeal again, this time with honey Pastor Ruth had brought. Sophia hummed as she ate, swinging her legs. Are we rich now, Mama? She asked between bites. Elena smiled, the gesture still unfamiliar on her face. I don't know yet, sweetheart. But I think things might be changing for us. Can we stay here forever? Elena looked around the kitchen, peeling wallpaper, cracked tiles, morning light turning dust motes to gold. Despite everything, it felt like home. I hope so, she said, and meant it. The county courthouse auditorium buzzed with murmurs and the waxy smell of polished benches. People fanned themselves with folded flyers while the American flag rustled in the weak air conditioning. Elena sat straight-backed in a chair that creaked whenever she shifted, her beige blazer borrowed from Pastor Ruth feeling stiff across her shoulders. Sophia fidgeted beside her, patent leather shoes gleaming, hair tied back with a ribbon that matched her dress. At the front table, Grant Malloy lounged in expensive calm, his dark suit drinking the light, a smirk coiled at the corner of his mouth. His voice, which always sounded like a promise you'd later regret, carried as he spoke to the tax clerk. Sell it cheap. It'll save her from pain. Lila Chen slipped into the seat beside Elena, briefcase polished and precise as her manner. Over the past 2 weeks, she had become a fixture at the farmhouse, spreading documents across the kitchen table, making calls from the porch, her voice crisp with authority. The smell of her perfume, subtle jasmine, had begun to replace the musty odor of disuse. Ready? Lila whispered, squeezing Elena's hand. Elena nodded, though her stomach churned like wash day. She glanced at the back of the room where Miguel Ortega stood, hat respectfully in hand. Mesquite Basin Energy's land manager. His weathered face creased in a reassuring smile. The clerk called the meeting to order, voice echoing against oak panels. He began reading the list of properties slated for tax auction, each address a sentence of displacement. When Elena's name surfaced, her pulse quickened. The Bennett property, 897 County Road 414, 30 acres with improvements. Delinquent taxes totaling $12,487. Malloy straightened, already reaching for his checkbook. Lila rose, the scrape of her chair like a challenge. One moment, she said, voice steady as a hymn. I'd like to address the court regarding this property. The clerk frowned. This is an auction, Ms. Chen, not a hearing. Nevertheless, Lila's smile was polite steel. I believe you'll want to hear this before proceeding. She approached the bench, heels clicking on polished floors, and handed over a blue folder. Papers rustled, a projector hummed. On the screen bloomed maps and signatures, seals and letters. The room quieted as the clerk flipped through documents, his expression shifting from annoyance to surprise. Miguel stepped forward, throat clearing. If I may, sir. These royalties have been held in escrow pending clear title, he said. Clear title now exists. Funds are payable to Miss Elena Morales and her minor child. The clerk's eyebrows rose. And the delinquent taxes. My client is prepared to satisfy that obligation immediately, Lila replied, passing another document across the bench. The room swelled with whispers, the kind that make a person taller or smaller, depending on which truth they touch. Malloy's smirk twitched, then cracked. He took a step forward and tried to smile as if the shape would obey. "Well now, Ms. Morales," he said, voice brittle. "Perhaps we can discuss a more mutually beneficial arrangement. I've been interested in that property for some time." Elena met his gaze, not angry, simply rooted. "No," she said, soft enough to be sharp. "This land will feed people before it feeds greed." Sophia's hand slipped into hers, warm and sure as sunrise. The clerk cleared his throat. "In light of these documents, the Bennett property is removed from today's auction. Miss Morales, please see the tax office to settle the outstanding balance." Lila gathered their papers, a satisfied smile playing at her lips. "We'll do that now, thank you." As they moved toward the exit, people stepped aside, eyes following with newfound respect. Pastor Ruth waited in the hall, hands clasped as if in prayer. Mr. Alvarez stood beside her, cap twisted in calloused fingers. "Is it true?" Pastor Ruth whispered. "The mineral rights?" Elena nodded, still dazed by the reality of it all. "Apparently my great-uncle discovered oil on the property years ago but refused to let them drill. They've been paying royalties into an account ever since, waiting for the legal owner to claim them." "And that's you," Mr. Alvarez said, wonder in his voice. "Me and Sophia." Elena squeezed her daughter's hand. "He left it to both of us." Outside, the Texas sun beat down like a blessing. Heat rippled off asphalt. Car windows flashed blinding light. Elena paused on the courthouse steps, breathing in air that tasted of diesel and possibility. Malloy emerged from the building, phone pressed to his ear, face tight with frustration. He spotted Elena and hesitated, then changed course to intercept her. "Miss Morales." His voice had lost its drawl. "I hope there are no hard feelings." Business is business. Elena studied him. The expensive watch, the manicured nails, the eyes that calculated worth in dollars and cents. Once, you mean by dinama. She might have feared him. Now she simply saw him, a man who had everything except enough. "No hard feelings, Mr. Malloy," she said. "You helped me understand the value of what I have." 3 months later, the farmhouse breathed different air. Fresh paint gleamed white against the Texas sky. The porch had new boards smooth under bare feet. The windmill turned steady and sure, drawing clean water from depths the drought couldn't touch. Elena stood in the kitchen where morning light spilled across new countertops. The smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls filled the air. Pastor Ruth's recipe, now Elena's Saturday tradition. Through the window, she watched Sophia chase chickens across a yard green with new life. The door opened and Miguel entered, removing his hat. "Morning, Ms. Morales, just stopping by to check how the Eastfield irrigation is coming along." Elena poured him coffee in a blue ceramic mug. "Right on schedule. The contractor says we'll be ready to plant by next month." "And the community center? Breaking ground next week." Elena smiled, the expression now comfortable on her face. "The after-school program already has 30 kids signed up." After discovering the extent of her inheritance, Elena had established the Bennett Morales Community Trust. She'd paid off the trailer park's debts, funded scholarships for local children, hired Mr. Alvarez to run a small mechanics shop on the property, and begun plans for sustainable farming that would employ local families. Miguel nodded approvingly. "Your uncle would be proud." "I hope so." Elena touched the faded photograph now framed on the wall. Royce and his young wife standing before the windmill, faces bright with promise. The screen door banged and Sophia burst in, cheeks flushed, smelling of sunshine and chicken feed. "Mama, the hen laid 7 eggs today. That's wonderful, sweetheart." Elena smoothed her daughter's wild hair. "Go wash up. Breakfast is almost ready." As Sophia clattered up the stairs, Miguel finished his coffee. "I'll check back next week." "The company board is impressed with your plans, by the way. Not many people would use that kind of money to build something for others." Elena walked him to the door. "Money is just a tool, Mr. Ortega. What matters is who uses it and how." After he left, she returned to the kitchen window. The land stretched before her, golden in morning light. Not just earth and grass, but possibility. In the distance, the first foundation stones of the community center caught the sun. The phone rang. Lila, calling with news about the scholarship fund. Elena listened, making notes, feeling the comfortable weight of purpose settling into her bones. At dusk, she and Sophia sat on the porch steps, the sky wide as forgiveness. Crickets tuned their fiddles, the air cooled, smelling faintly of rain and cut grass. Sophia leaned against her mother, the biscuit tin, emptied of fear and filled with letters of thanks, on her lap. "Mama," she asked, eyes reflecting porch light, "are we rich now?" Elena smiled, feeling the calm weight of the day settling into her bones. "We're rich in the right things," she said, "and we'll use the rest to make sure others have enough." She kissed Sophia's temple, the skin warm and real. In the field, the windmill turned, steady and sure. A truck approached along the driveway, headlights cutting through gathering dusk. Elena recognized Malloy's vehicle but felt no apprehension. He stopped before the porch, rolled down his window. "Evening, Ms. Morales." His tone was different now, respectful, perhaps even contrite. "Heard you're hiring local contractors for that community center." "That's right." Elena remained seated, Sophia warm against her side. "My nephew runs a plumbing outfit. Good work, fair prices. Thought I'd mention it." Elena nodded slowly. "Have him bring his credentials by tomorrow, we'll take a look." Malloy hesitated, then nodded. "Appreciate it. Place is looking good." After he drove away, Sophia looked up. "You're not mad at him anymore?" Elena watched the dust settle in his wake. "Being angry takes too much energy, sweetheart. Better to use it for building something good." Night fell gentle and cool. Stars appeared one by one, pinpricks in darkening silk. Inside, the house settled with contented creaks. Tomorrow would bring more work, more plans, more chances to make things right. But tonight, on this porch, with her daughter beside her and the land beneath her feet, Elena knew a peace she had only glimpsed in dreams. A quiet certainty rose in her like a chorus she finally knew by heart. Love and dignity are treasures no one can steal. Autumn painted the countryside in amber and rust. Elena stood on a stepladder in the community center's main hall, hanging paper lanterns from wooden beams, while the scent of fresh paint lingered in the air. Through tall windows, she could see workers installing playground equipment on freshly sodded ground. Swings that caught sunlight, a slide curving like a comma against the horizon. Sophia burst through the double doors, sneakers squeaking on polished concrete. "Mama! The sign is here." Elena climbed down, joints aching pleasantly from honest work. Outside, a flatbed truck idled, exhaust curling in the crisp air. Two men carefully unloaded a wooden sign, the letters carved deep and filled with gold paint. Bennett Morales Community Center. "It's beautiful," Elena whispered, running her fingers over the smooth surface, feeling the grooves that spelled her family name. The project manager, a local woman named Diane with calloused hands and a no-nonsense ponytail, approached with a clipboard. "Plumbing's done. Malloy's nephew did good work. Electrical passes inspection. We're on track for the grand opening next Saturday." 4 months had passed since the courthouse revelation. The money, a sum Elena still couldn't fully comprehend, sat in accounts managed by Lila's firm. Each expenditure felt momentous. The scholarships for trailer park kids, the debt forgiveness program, the sustainable farming initiative that would turn fallow fields green again. Not everyone understood. At church, whispers followed her down the aisle, some admiring, others suspicious. "Pride comes before a fall," she'd overheard Mrs. Brennan say, the words sharp as pins. At the grocery store, the butcher who'd once barely acknowledged her now called her Miss Morales with exaggerated respect. "Miss Morales?" Diane's voice pulled her back. "About the after-school program, we've got 35 kids signed up now, but we'll need more volunteers." Elena nodded, mind already cataloging possibilities. "I'll ask at church on Sunday." "And Mr. Hernandez from the high school said some seniors need community service hours." Sophia tugged at her sleeve. "Can I show them my books, Mama?" "For the library?" "Of course, sweetheart." Why don't you go get them from the car? As Sophia dashed off, Elena gazed at the building rising from land that had once seemed barren. Inside would be classrooms for adult education, a commercial kitchen for culinary training, meeting spaces for community groups, and a library filled with books that whispered of worlds beyond Taylor County. "You've done something special here," Diane said, following her gaze. "Most folks would have taken that money and run." Elena smiled. "This is home. Always has been, even when I couldn't see it." The sound of tires on. Gravel turned both women's heads. A familiar SUV pulled up, gleaming black against the dusty parking lot. Grant Malloy stepped out, polished boots catching the light, face unreadable behind expensive sunglasses. "Ladies," he called, walking toward them with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to deference. "Place is coming along nicely." Elena straightened, feeling old wariness rise. "Your nephew does good work, Mr. Malloy. Diane says the plumbing passed inspection. Jason's a smart kid. Just needed a chance." He removed his sunglasses, tucking them into his shirt pocket. His eyes, which Elena had always found cold, looked tired in the autumn light. "Got a minute to talk?" They walked to a newly installed bench beneath an old oak tree. The leaves rustled overhead, a few spiraling down to land at their feet. In the distance, Sophia arranged books on a folding table, concentration furrowing her brow. "I'll be direct, Ms. Morales," Malloy began, voice stripped of its usual drawl. "I've got a proposition for you." Elena tensed. "I'm not selling the land, Mr. Malloy." He raised a hand. "Not that kind of proposition. I've been thinking about what you said, about feeding people before feeding greed." He paused, the words seeming to cost him something. "I own 40 acres adjacent to yours, good water rights. Been sitting on it for years, waiting for developers. And now I'm wondering if it might do more good as part of your project. The sustainable farming program you're planning might work better with more land." Elena studied him, looking for the trap. "Why would you do that?" Malloy gazed toward the horizon where windmills turned against the sky. "Been in this county 40 years. Built what I thought was success. Big house, nobody in it. Lots of land, nothing growing." He picked up a fallen leaf, turning it between his fingers. "Maybe I've been measuring wrong." The confession hung between them, fragile as spider silk. Elena thought of all the times she'd feared this man, all the nights she'd lain awake worrying he would take what little she had. The idea that he might be lonely had never occurred to her. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. "A partnership? I donate the land to your trust. You let me be part of building something that matters." Sophia appeared before them, arms full of colorful books. "Mr. Malloy, do you want to see our library?" Malloy's face softened in a way Elena hadn't seen before. "I'd be honored, Miss Sophia." They followed her to the folding table where she'd arranged picture books, science encyclopedias, and dog-eared novels salvaged from yard sales and church donations. "This is just the beginning," Sophia explained, voice serious with responsibility. "Mama says we'll have hundreds more. Anyone can borrow them." Malloy knelt to examine a tattered copy of Charlotte's Web. "This was my daughter's favorite," he said quietly. "She's in Austin now. Lawyer. Doesn't come home much." The revelation shifted something in Elena's understanding. This man had a child, had read bedtime stories, had known love beyond accumulation. She tried to reconcile this Malloy with the one who'd slid a meager check across a table, who'd counted on her desperation. "Mr. Malloy, she said, choosing her words carefully. "I'd need to discuss any partnership with my attorney and the trust board, but I appreciate the offer." He nodded, rising with a slight wince that betrayed his age. "Fair enough?" "No rush." He handed Sophia the book. "You've got a good eye for quality, young lady. This one's a classic." As he walked back to his vehicle, Elena felt the ground beneath her feet shift subtly, like tectonic plates realigning after long resistance. The man who had once seemed an enemy now appeared simply human. Flawed, perhaps lonely, possibly seeking redemption. That evening, as golden light spilled across the farmhouse kitchen, Elena called Lila to discuss Malloy's proposal. The attorney's voice crackled through the speaker, practical as always. We'd need environmental testing, a thorough title search, and I'd want the donation structured to prevent any future claims. Elena stirred a pot of chili, the rich aroma filling the kitchen. Do you think it's genuine? Lila's laugh was dry. People surprise you sometimes, Elena. Even Grant Malloy. After dinner, Elena and Sophia sat on the porch swing, listening to crickets tune up for their nightly symphony. The air smelled of earth and promise. Sophia leaned against her mother, warm and solid. Are we going to take Mr. Malloy's land, Mama? Elena brushed hair from her daughter's forehead. Maybe, if it's the right thing for everyone. He seemed sad. Yes, he did. Sophia yawned, nestling closer. Maybe he needs friends. Elena gazed at the darkening sky where stars appeared one by one, each a pinprick of possibility. The past months had taught her that wealth could be measured in many ways. In land and money, yes, but also in purpose, in community, in the chance to build something that would outlast her. Maybe we all do, sweetheart, she said softly. Maybe we all do. The grand opening of the Bennett Morales Community Center dawned clear and crisp, the November sky a perfect blue canvas stretched above Taylor County. Elena stood before the mirror in her bedroom, smoothing a dress she'd bought specially for the occasion. Deep blue, like the sky outside, simple but new. She couldn't remember the last time she'd bought something without checking the clearance rack first. From downstairs came the clatter of breakfast preparation, Sophia helping Pastor Ruth arrange muffins on borrowed platters, their voices rising and falling in easy conversation. Through the open window, Elena could hear the first cars arriving, tires crunching on gravel, car doors slamming, children's excited voices carrying on the morning air. The past week had been a whirlwind of preparations. Chairs delivered, floors polished, books shelved in the new library. Lila had helped her write a speech that now sat on the dresser, its corners crisp, its words both a promise and a confession. Elena ran her fingers over the paper, heart fluttering with the weight of the day. A knock at the door pulled her attention. Elena? It's almost time. Pastor Ruth's voice, warm as fresh bread. At the community center, people gathered in clusters. Trailer park families in their Sunday best. Farmers in pressed shirts and clean boots. Town officials with practiced smiles. Children darting between adults, energy barely contained. Elena moved among them, accepting congratulations, answering questions, introducing people who had lived as neighbors for years without really knowing each other. Miguel Ortega appeared at her elbow, hat in hand, eyes crinkling with approval. Miss Morales, the Mesquite Basin Board sent this. He presented an envelope. A matching grant for the Sustainable Agriculture Program. Before Elena could respond, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd. Grant Malloy, but not as she'd ever seen him. Gone were the designer suit and polished boots. Instead, he wore simple khakis and a button-down shirt. And beside him stood a young woman in a tailored pantsuit, her features echoing his. Miss Morales, he said, extending his hand. I'd like you to meet my daughter, Rebecca. The young woman smiled, her handshake firm. Dad's been talking about your project nonstop. I had to see it for myself. Elena welcomed them, noticing the way Malloy's eyes swept the space. Not calculating value, as they once might have, but taking in details. The children's artwork already displayed on walls. The elderly couple examining books in the library corner. The teenagers setting up chairs with unexpected care. It's time for the ceremony, Diane called, gesturing toward the small podium set up near the newly installed sign. Elena's mouth went dry. She'd spoken in public exactly once before, at a school board meeting where she'd nervously requested additional tutoring for Sophia. Now more than 100 people gathered, waiting for her words. Sophia appeared at her side, slipping a small hand into hers. You'll do great, Mama, she whispered. The crowd quieted as Elena approached the podium. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny stars. She unfolded her speech, then set it aside. The carefully crafted words seemed suddenly inadequate for the fullness in her heart. 6 months ago, she began, voice steadier than she'd expected, I stood in the probate office being told what little my family's land was worth. A few knowing chuckles rippled through the crowd. I didn't know then what was hidden beneath that land, not just mineral rights, but history, heritage, and hope. She gestured to the building around them. This center doesn't belong to me. It belongs to all of us, to every family that struggled to make ends meet, to every child who's needed a safe place after school, to every elder with wisdom to share, to every person who's ever felt that their voice doesn't matter. Elena found Sophia's face in the crowd, her daughter's eyes shining with pride. We named it Bennett Morales because it bridges past and future. My great-uncle Royce Bennett knew the value of this land went beyond dollars. He protected it for a generation he would never meet. Her gaze moved to Malloy, standing at the back, his daughter beside him. I've learned that wealth isn't just what you have, it's what you build together. And sometimes, the most valuable partnerships come from unexpected places. Murmurs spread as Elena continued, announcing Malloy's land donation and the formation of an expanded agricultural training program. She introduced Miguel and the Mesquite Basin Matching Grant, Diane and her construction team, Pastor Ruth and the volunteer coordinators. Today we're not just opening a building, she concluded, voice thick with emotion. We're opening a new chapter for our community. Everyone has a place here. Everyone has value here. Everyone belongs here. Applause erupted, not polite but genuine, punctuated by cheers from the teenagers and a hallelujah from Pastor Ruth. As Elena stepped away from the podium, Sophia rushed forward, wrapping arms around her waist. That was better than your paper, Mama, she whispered. The celebration flowed through the morning, tours of classrooms and the commercial kitchen, sign-ups for adult education classes, children exploring the new playground. Elena moved through it all in a kind of daze, accepting congratulations, making introductions, witnessing connections forming like delicate bridges between lives that had previously only orbited each other. In the library corner, she found Malloy sitting alone, a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird open on his lap. He looked up as she approached, a rueful smile softening his features. Quite a day, Ms. Morales. Elena sat beside him, smoothing her dress. Thank you for coming, and for the land donation. He closed the book, running a thumb along its spine. I've been thinking about legacy lately. What we leave behind. He nodded toward where Rebecca chatted with Miguel by the refreshment table. My daughter reminded me that all my property deals won't mean much once I'm gone, unless they've made a difference for someone besides me. The admission hung between them, honest in a way their previous encounters had never been. Elena thought of her own journey, from the woman who trembled before authority to someone who could stand and speak her truth. It's never too late to change direction. Mr. Malloy. He smiled, the expression reaching his eyes this time. Grant, please. Elena, then. Outside, children's laughter rose from the playground. Inside, a group gathered around an elderly man demonstrating traditional weaving techniques, his gnarled hands moving with practiced grace. The sound of a guitar floated from another room, where teenagers had organized an impromptu music session. Your speech, Grant said quietly, about everyone belonging. I've lived in this county my whole life and never felt that way. Elena considered this, how a man with so much could feel so little connection. The center will need a business advisor, she said. Someone who understands finance, property management. The board meets Tuesday evenings. Something like hope flickered across his face. I might know someone suitable. By late afternoon, the crowd had thinned. Elena sat on a bench beneath the oak tree, watching Sophia help younger children navigate the monkey bars, her daughter's patience a mirror that reflected how much they'd both grown. Rebecca Malloy approached, jacket draped over her arm. I wanted to thank you before I head back to Austin, she said, sitting beside Elena. For whatever you said to my father. He's different, listening more, talking about things that matter. Elena smiled, watching Grant across the playground, deep in conversation with Mr. Alvarez. Sometimes people just need to be seen, really seen, for who they could be, not just who they've been. As twilight gathered, the last visitors departed. Elena and Sophia walked the empty hallways, turning off lights, straightening chairs, their footsteps echoing on polished floors. The building seemed to breathe around them, rooms holding the day's laughter and conversations like precious memories. "Can we do this every day, Mama?" Sophia asked, stifling a yawn. Elena brushed hair from her daughter's forehead, feeling the perfect weight of love and purpose. "Not every day, but many days. This is just the beginning." Outside, stars pierced the darkening sky one by one. The air smelled of cooling earth and new possibilities. They walked hand in hand toward their truck, leaving behind a building that would open again tomorrow and the next day and all the days after. A promise kept, a legacy begun. Spring came to Taylor County in a rush of wildflowers and birdsong. 1 year after finding the tin box beneath the floorboards, Elena stood in fields that had once been barren, watching volunteers plant rows of vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, beans, and squash, stretching toward the horizon in neat green lines. The soil, enriched with compost and care, smelled rich and alive. Nearby, irrigation pipes gleamed in the morning sun, drawing water from the refurbished well. "Miss Morales!" A teenage boy waved from behind a wheelbarrow. "Where do you want these seedlings?" Elena shielded her eyes, recognizing Martin Torres, 16, quiet, once on the verge of dropping out of school. Now he led the youth agriculture program, teaching younger children about growing food while earning credits toward a future degree in sustainable farming. "By the eastern fence, Martin. We're starting the herb garden there. The transformation of the land mirrored the transformation of the community." The Bennett Morales Center hummed with activity daily. Seniors teaching cooking classes in the commercial kitchen, young mothers attending GED courses while their children played in supervised care, teenagers like Martin finding purpose in work that connected them to something larger than themselves. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. Lila's name flashed on the screen. "Just got confirmation," the attorney said without preamble. The state approved the grant for the vocational training expansion. Construction can start next month. Elena thanked her, tucking the phone away as Sophia approached, clipboard in hand, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. At 11, her daughter had blossomed in the past year. More confident, more compassionate, taking on responsibilities at the center with natural leadership. "The kindergarten class is coming at 10 for their planting lesson," Sophia reported. "And Mrs. White tiramos." Brennan brought more cookies for the volunteer break room. Elena smiled at the mention of Mrs. Brennan, once her most vocal critic, now a dedicated volunteer who brought baked goods and organized clothing drives. "Thank you, sweetheart. Why don't you show them the butterfly garden when they arrive?" The butterfly garden had been Sophia's project, a vibrant patch of native flowers designed to attract monarchs on their migration route. Like many of the center's initiatives, it served multiple purposes: beauty, education, and environmental restoration working in harmony. As Sophia hurried off, Elena spotted a familiar truck pulling into the gravel parking area. Grant Malloy stepped out, no longer seeming out of place in work boots and jeans, a leather portfolio tucked under his arm. The past months had softened him somehow. Not just his appearance, but his essence. Weekly board meetings had evolved into genuine collaboration. His business acumen balanced Elena's vision in ways that strengthened both. "Morning, Elena," he called, approaching with the easy gait of someone comfortable in his surroundings. "Got the quarterly reports ready for review, and Rebecca sent those legal templates for the apprenticeship program." They walked toward the center, passing the playground where preschoolers squealed on swings, their laughter carried on the spring breeze. Inside, the main hall buzzed with morning activity. A nutrition class for new mothers, a job skills workshop for veterans, high school students cataloging books for the expanding library. In Elena's small office, potted plants thrived on the windowsill. She'd resisted having a dedicated space at first, preferring to move among the people the center served. But Lila had insisted she needed somewhere to manage the growing operation, and Elena had gradually made it her own. Family photos, sharing space with children's artwork. The original deed in a simple frame beside the first dollar earned by the center's farm stand. Grant spread financial reports across her desk, pointing out trends and projections. The training kitchen is already self-sustaining. The catering service covers operating costs plus 15%, which we're rolling back into the Culinary Scholarship Fund. Elena nodded, making notes. And the farm production? On track to supply both the center's needs and the weekend market. By fall, we should be able to offer CSA shares to the community. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by the sounds of the living building around them. Doors opening and closing, voices rising in discussion or instruction, occasional bursts of laughter. Through the window, Elena could see Martin guiding younger children in transplanting seedlings, his hands gentle despite their size. "I've been thinking," Grant said, closing his portfolio, "about expanding the land trust model to other counties. There's a property outside Sweetwater, good land, falling into disrepair. Owner passed without heirs. County's looking to auction it next month." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You're not buying enough land already?" He smiled, the expression now natural on a face that had once seemed permanently set in calculation. "Not for me. For this." He gestured to encompass the center, the fields beyond. "What you've built here, Elena, it's a template that could work elsewhere. Communities need anchors, places that bring people together across the divides we create." The idea settled in Elena's mind like a seed finding fertile soil. "We'd need partners, local leadership. I've started some conversations." People are watching what's happening here. A knock at the door interrupted them. Pastor Ruth stood in the doorway, gray hair escaping her practical bun, apron dusted with flour. "Elena, the health department inspector is here for the kitchen certification, and that reporter from the San Antonio paper arrived early." Elena gathered her notes, the day shifting into its next phase. "We'll continue this discussion at the board meeting, Grant." Outside her office, she paused to observe the main hall, the easy mingling of people who might never have connected otherwise. Mr. Alvarez, now the center's maintenance supervisor, showing a group of teenagers how to repair small engines. Mrs. Brennan and several trailer park mothers cataloging donations for the emergency assistance program. Miguel Ortega, who had become a regular visitor, discussing water conservation with local farmers. The reporter, a young woman with bright eyes and a recorder in hand, approached. "Miss Morales? I'm Daniela Ruiz from the Express News. Thank you for agreeing to the interview." They walked the grounds together, Elena explaining the center's programs while Daniela recorded and took photographs. Near the greenhouse, they found Sophia leading kindergartners in a circle, teaching them a song about the plant life cycle, her voice clear and confident. "Your daughter seems quite involved," Daniela observed. Elena smiled, watching Sophia demonstrate how to gently transfer seedlings to larger pots, the children following her example with serious concentration. "She helps run our youth programs. The center is as much hers as anyone's. And the funding model, combining mineral rights revenue with grants and social enterprise, that's unusual for rural development. We believe sustainability isn't just environmental, it's financial too. Everything we do needs to either generate revenue or create value that strengthens the community long-term." The reporter nodded, making notes. "One last question, Miss Morales. What would you say to other communities facing similar challenges? Declining populations, lack of economic opportunity, young people leaving." Elena considered this as they walked past the windmill, its vanes turning steadily against the blue sky. The question touched the heart of everything she'd learned in the past year, about wealth, community, and the courage to reimagine what seemed fixed. "I'd say look beneath the surface," she answered finally. "Every community has hidden resources, not always mineral rights, but knowledge, skills, connection to place. The key is bringing those resources into the light and using them to serve the whole, not just a few." Later that afternoon, as shadows lengthened across newly planted fields, Elena found herself alone on the farmhouse porch. Inside, Sophia was on the phone with Rebecca Malloy, discussing ideas for a weekend science camp, The sound of her daughter's animated conversation floated through open windows. Elena's gaze traveled across the property, the center with its light still burning as evening classes began, the refurbished barn where local artisans now worked and taught, the fields where food grew for people who had once known hunger. Beyond stood the windmill, turning as it had for generations, drawing life from depths that drought could not touch. A year ago, she had stood in the same spot, terrified and uncertain, holding a deed she couldn't afford to keep and facing a future she couldn't imagine. Now she sat surrounded by manifestations of a different kind of wealth. Not just the money that had made it possible, but the connections, purpose, and belonging that gave it meaning. The screen door creaked, and Sophia emerged with 2 glasses of lemonade, condensation beading on the sides. She handed one to Elena and settled beside her on the porch swing, their shoulders touching. The evening air smelled of growing things and possibility. Rebecca said she's moving back from Austin, Sophia reported. She's going to help with the legal clinic and the Sweetwater project. Elena nodded, unsurprised. Many who had left were finding reasons to return, or to stay in the first place. The center had become a gravitational force, pulling community into its orbit. "Mama," Sophia said after a moment, her voice thoughtful. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd sold the farm to Mr. Malloy that first day?" Elena considered the question, watching the last sunlight gild the windmill. In the year since discovering her inheritance, she had learned that true wealth flowed like water, valuable only when it moved, when it nourished, when it was shared. "I think," she said carefully, "that we would have missed discovering who we really are." Sophia nodded, satisfaction in the gesture. At 11, she understood more than many adults that dignity wasn't found in having, but in becoming. That true security came not from walls, but from bridges. As twilight deepened toward night, lights came on across the property, warm squares of yellow, marking places where people gathered to learn, to create, to connect. From the center, music drifted on the evening breeze, the senior choir practicing for the weekend's community festival. A quiet certainty rose in Elena like a chorus she finally knew by heart. Love and dignity are treasures no one can steal, and when shared, they only multiply.